Hello everyone and welcome back. First of all, big thank you to everyone who gave comments and questions. I'm very much looking forward to answer some of those based on today's topic. What I want to talk today about is being a CEO really for you, and generally my experience and how I even ended up being a CEO, because that was not my plan. Still trying to figure out how to not to do this particular role. But then again, there are different ways to be a CEO, and I want to share at least what worked for me and my team. While doing so, as mentioned, we are going to paint Gveros. Look at him. This is the main character of our game Willow Guard, which is 2D action-adventure RPG, and especially the action part happens in the pixel dungeons, which we still wanted to make the 3D models of all our characters, so that not just to be the cool figurines as desk friends, we are having quite many different plans for the Willow Guard as an IP, including also merch as well as board games, graphic novels, and so on. Therefore, this is going to be a bit of a test run to see how things go. I did get the new 3D printer, and I will be testing different kind of characters from the models that we made. And yeah, today, what better way to talk about business than painting some miniatures? So let's go. While I'm preparing some of these paints, for those who are joining for the very first time, hello, welcome to Indie Games Glam with Nat. I'm Nat, short for Natasha. I am the CEO and creative director of MyTale, an indie game company from Finland. And today I will be talking about leading the company and how we created our company culture, as it has been the main pillar of our business from the beginning. We actually created company culture deck before any other deck. And we still put culture above everything else, because we all believe that with the right culture, you can do the right type of business that fits you and your team. So when we started our business 8 years ago, it was 4 of us, co-founders, and I was not actually at all interested to be the CEO, even that I was at the time CEO of another company, and in the final stages as I was leaving, and it was all prepared for my move on to own endeavors. But the thing is that the other person was supposed to be the CEO from the co-founders, and after a few months of handling the tasks, I was asked if I would, after all, consider taking the CEO role in our company instead. And so I did, even that, as said, that was not intentional role I was heading towards, because I really wanted to stop doing the business side and generally management. I wanted to do more research development, so R&D side, creative direction, and overall focus on the visuals and interactive storytelling principles in game design in our games. Speaking of the culture, one of the really important parts for us, all of us, was that we have full transparency of what is actually happening inside the team, and from the business side to teamwork to projects being in development and so forth. So that was one of the really important parts for us, to have absolutely full transparency with no BS between, especially not between the founders. In the last episode, I mentioned that we decided not to actually go with any C round, because we wanted to really see, can we build the business out of thin air? And if we do, then if we want to do investment round, that would be more like a scale-up investment instead of being, this sort of like seed investment and startup investment as such. And there is a big difference in what kind of deal you want to have for the scale-up investment compared to the startup investment. And overall, I can talk about different types of investments in some of the upcoming episodes. But back to the culture. That was one thing. We decided not to do investment at all and try to build the business on our own, with also principle of that if we manage to make a sustainable business on our own, imagine then what we can do with both with the money that our company is generating, as well as then someone else's millions if we are taking that kind of scale-up investment for developing the business forward and the products and everything else we have. Now, the funny part is that when we speak with investors, even nowadays, it is really funny to have different kinds of reactions to the whole company culture that we have, as well as the business strategy that we don't want to actually change even with the scale-up investments. And that is this, that we really want to keep B2B and B2C inside the company as it is. And no changes would happen no matter how the company grows. Of course, there would be changes, meaning adjustments. But when it comes to the main, let's say, business models, we want to have equal business to business, so service providing, outsourcing, and so forth, together with creating our own games and our own products, and especially the brands, because working in licensing is something that I personally really enjoy, and building the brands and building the stories behind them and everything else, and then finding the ways that these IPs actually find their right audiences. So one thing that we did is that we wanted to make sure that everyone is actually equal in the company, that it's fully flat hierarchy. Now, that might mean different things in different teams, but I will just tell you what it means in our team. In our team, that means that we are all equally paid. So I have the same salary as the CEO and founder, as the newcomer to the company, as well as anyone else. We also make sure with that there is no difference in the value between different disciplines. So coder is not more important or more valuable than the artist, or artist is not more important or valuable than game designer, or game designer not more or less important than the coder, and so forth. This is something that I know already. Many will raise their eyebrows on this. And no, this is not normal even for Finland, no matter how hipster things can be here. But this is something that worked for our team, because I honestly believe that if we are not being able to being treated equally, paid equally, I don't know how else we could really the value that each team member brings. If one gets the raise, everyone gets the raise. That's the basically. So if we decide together that we are going to make a raise, then we make a raise. However, we do have a bonus system, and I can talk about that on a separate occasion. Also, the roles don't really matter. I mean, when it comes to the titles, I mean, sure, in my case, when it comes to CEO, I do have a variety of responsibilities, and these responsibilities are not always fun, but someone has to do these things. Someone has to make sure that there is enough work available, that there is enough money on the account to keep going, no matter if some of the projects don't, run as you have been wanting it to or expecting it to. Because the thing is that you can't really rely on one source of income. That is another really big decision that we made as a team, not to put all the eggs in one basket. As a part of strategy, wanted to make sure that we always have multiple projects going on, both on B2B and B2C side, meaning that we create our own product, testing our own ideas, doing our own creations, while we are also having service. And this is something that we would never change as a company as long as this management stays. So even if we grow, we can see how we can arrange who is where and doing what. The whole point is that we will have still B2B and B2C that allows us to actually have variety of different projects to work on, get completely new skill sets, allow people to try different things, learn different skills, get experience to even AAA, as well as gamification, serious games, VR, AR, you name it. What is the best part about it is that our team can get such a broad experience from working with our partners and clients while still being in our company under our employment benefits and rules and everything else, and the way how we work, which means that nobody gets used and abused, because I make very, very clear and very sure how our contracts and the way of working with our partners takes place. And doing so, we can have people try different stuff, work on different projects, and also switch between those. Because, for example, how do we manage the time to work on both B2B and B2C and still keep creative and so forth? So first of all, working on different projects really is refreshing, can be very, very refreshing. Working on the same project for not just months, but years and years. And even if you are in the bigger company and having very specific task at hand, that can be also very draining and not as motivating as one would think, especially if you keep getting same issues, same bugs for the same things that you have been fixing over and over. In this case, people can choose which projects they want to be part of and in which capacity. And quite often, when it comes to client projects, what is really fun is that feedback loop can take sometimes days, sometimes weeks. And while we are waiting for the feedback from the client, it doesn't mean that people are now going to just sit and wait until the feedback comes. They can immediately start helping other teams in some other tasks, or they can work on our own projects, or they can also just work on some project that they decided to work. Or it can be even that they want to learn some new skills. So it's really important for us to empower people to try different things and learn different skills, which means also that we are really big on empowering people to try and learn to take courses, do even, studies as to get their bachelor's, master's, or even PhD studies during working with us, because why not? To use this opportunity to also get additional certification in whichever field they want to have. First of all, we started growing slowly. I wanted to prevent any kind of issues that fast growth might bring into the equation. So we wanted to be very careful when expanding and growing our team. And that's why we also quite often outsource even from our end, especially on our products, not for the client product, but for our products. We do tend to also, when needed and however needed, outsource further. So it allows us to as well test things faster and with less pressure when it comes to bringing a new team member. It's not just, here you go, and now you need to do this and that. There is so much that comes to onboarding and seeing also how does the person actually fit the team and how everything works for everyone involved. But again, this company culture doesn't fit everyone. And it doesn't mean that it would work for you. I'm just sharing what works for us. But why I think it's important to diversify the sources of income and make sure that you don't depend only on one source of income. You never know what is going to happen next. Even if you have a long-term partnership and the contracts that can be, on the paper at least, lasting years and years, at any point, these partnerships can break. And nothing wrong with that. Your partner might have some other kind of challenges at hand and simply has to cut this particular project or even do from now on completely things internally. The point is, it's business, no hard feelings. So therefore, you just need to make sure that you don't depend only on one source of income. I've seen so many companies who have struggled just because they have one big client and then suddenly the client cancels the project. And then what? So putting eggs in many baskets not only allows you to have different kinds of approaches to understanding what people need and how people need in a different setting, for different markets and whatnot, but also allows you to have more freedom to test things, especially with your own projects, and to see where and how to really pick what works for your team forward. We usually start with our own projects, with what we would like to make, what people would be passionate to work on. And we do that through internal game jams. Game jams have a really big role in our team. Our team members also participate in many game jams. Sometimes these game jams are used for us to also just test certain game mechanics or game ideas that we might have for our own projects, but then it can happen that for whatever reason we can't do it yet, or it might not be a good time to pursue such project. However, at game jams we can test these things, and it's really important to test. Also, this is where, when we have even internal game design discussions for some projects, and there could be, of course, different kind of opinions and thoughts of what may or may not work. What I usually try to ask whoever has some design idea, and they're really, really eminent. So if someone is really particular about, I really think this would work, even if others might not feel the same way and so passionate about some proposal that comes to it. What I usually ask is that, okay, if you really think this is going to work, show us. Show us what do you really mean and how do you think it's going to work. This way, not only that you would allow a person to get their idea heard properly, that they can actually show it off. And by the way, that's mostly like few days, sometimes even it can be a full week. Just take a week, work on that particular feature that you think it's so important, even that the rest of us might not see it. Why? But take it out of your system. That's first thing. Take it out of your system and test it out. Sometimes it can happen that the person who is doing it will see like, oh yeah, no, this was actually a bad idea, never mind. Which again, we are not going to keep that idea then inside and think that, oh, but this might be really cool. So get it out of your system. It's really important to get all of this out of your system. And 2 days or 3 days or even a week is not going to really change much when it comes to long-term projects. Don't be afraid to test as you go, because that way you will save so much time and to avoid different kind of feature creeps that might be lurking around, or having this sort of demotivated people in your team because they couldn't be heard or their ideas were not considered at the time. So that worked really well for us, that if you have an idea, show it. Sometimes it's hard for developers to express themselves of what they really mean verbally, so it's much easier to actually show. So the coders can make a very dirty prototype, artists can make the concept art, or even if it's 3D and animation, they can do a little mock-ups of how things would be behaving and working and so forth. And that helps everyone to really understand what do they mean, especially for these projects that they are really passionate about and want specific feature to see in that game. And now to answer some of the questions that I have received. One was, of course, about the role of a CEO. I already mentioned that was not really the role that I wanted in the first place or aimed to be, because it is very demanding. People think that there is this glorious role of being in charge. First of all, in my experience, I might not have the boss above me, or especially in our case, we don't have that sort of external board members, well, except 2, but these are, as I said, more often advisors, who would be, like basically telling us what to do and how to do and that we must follow. So it is all in our hands how we want to manage things, which allows us also to pivot really fast when we see that something doesn't work, and especially data-driven. One thing that I have learned from the mobile industry while working for many years in the mobile sector, one thing that I still use a lot is, of course, data-driven approach. So numbers don't lie, at least not in my experience. And if in doubt, check the numbers, check and see, test and see what actually might make sense and what doesn't make sense for a certain product. And it's not just the product. It can be that some person would like to do something. Well, of course, one should encourage them to train further and get even, more skills in that field. But sometimes it's more like the personal ego instead of actual skill set, which again, skills can be gained. So there's no problem to become pretty much anything you want to become, but it's about how you get there. A lot of listening, learning by doing, and also learning from things that you don't like doing, because there are quite many things in the, especially role of a CEO, that I don't like doing. But hey, someone has to do it, and it is part of my job description, so I have to do it. What is a beautiful thing about independencies that you can really do however you want it and adjust it that it fits you and your personality. For example, for me, it's very exhausting to switch between the roles and switch between the tasks that there might be. I also do a lot of development, especially creative work, from game design, actual art production, art direction. So I'm very deep in the game development, not just managing and business development. So I also make our games together with my team. To achieve that, it's really important to have very clear when you do what. One of the questions was also like, how do you do so many things? For those who don't know, here comes very overwhelming monologue of the things I do. Besides running a game studio, I'm also an academic. So I'm finishing my doctorate. I'm teaching 4 courses at 2 universities. Five courses, dear Lord. Then I also organize variety of community events here in Finland and internationally. I organize conference in Turku called Over 7 Hills. Then I'm co-organizing some of the events with the IGDA under IGDA Future program for the youth and combining the education and games industry, bridging these gaps under IGDA Finland. Then I am board member of IGDA and IGDA Foundation, also co-founder and board member of Hive Turku Game Hub, which is the local gaming center here in Turku. Then I'm organizing variety of game jams from local sites of Global Game Jam to Quantum Game Jam. Quantum Game Jam has been now taking place for 10 years. Actually, last year we celebrated 10th anniversary, and for that I also had to organize a one-day conference with quantum and software experts talking about working within the quantum software development and how games actually helped in bridging these gaps there, in communicating as well as bringing people together through games for also educational purposes. And then I am also lead organizer of We Love Games conference here in Finland and international, which is the hybrid conference taking place now for past 7 years. And this year as well will be part of the Finnish Games Week, which is again on my plate as We Love Games organization is leading Finnish Games Week organizing. So as you can see, there is a lot on my plate. And it is overwhelming even to say it out loud how many things there are. I do understand if this is something that might overwhelm you as well. And I can tell you there is no clones of me. I don't have twins. It's just me and my team of volunteers, or also team from the industry, people who share the passion for making these things happen. How I manage my time? My very good friend Joni Lappalainen from Dreamloop Games actually had explained this to, I think, one of his talks, which I'm going to quote him now because I think that's the simplest way to explain actually how I managed to do my personal project management is think about school. In school, you have different subjects and you have very particular times when you have specific subjects. And when you do math, you don't do English. When you have English, you don't do physics. The point is you have a very specific time when and what is done based on the carefully planned and designed curriculum. And that's pretty much how I manage my time and all. I try to plan as much as I can and then adjust according to what world throws at me. And then from there, adjust accordingly. And of course, ask for help when needed. Because again, I can't do everything. I don't want to do everything. So asking for help is really important. And thankfully in our community, there is so many people who share the passion and want to help. And we do things together. And other way around, when people ask me for help, I'm there. I step up straight away and help any way I can. So how do I do this as a CEO? First of all, I'll give you an example of accounting. Let's use an accounting as an example. We as a company, of course, outsource accounting because I'm not going to deal with that. Nobody in our team wants to actually deal with that in the house as it comes to really report this. So we have an accounting firm who is handling our company's accounting. But of course, accountant needs all the material and information to be shared with them. That's something that I have dedicated days a month when I do. So I'm not touching account. Whatever papers, bills, and the rest comes, I just put it in the right place for the next time when I'm doing accounting. And that's usually twice a month. I have 2 dedicated days for accounting where I'm just handling all the paperwork, all the salary calculations, all the other calculations and so forth, invoices, paying invoices, sending invoices, doing all the stuff. So that allows me that I don't have to think about accounting other times, unless there is something that needs to be urgently handled for whatever reason. But again, after so many years, not really any urgency. Everything is really straightforward and really clean in that sense, because we do everything by the book. So when you do everything according to all in good time, so that it's really not that problematic. And once it becomes a routine, it's getting even easier and easier. But still, I would not ever do accounting on our own. To avoid mistakes, have professionals do what they do better. And that's the whole point. Get people who know way better and do things better than you to do these jobs, because you don't have to know everything and you don't have to do everything. And sooner you understand that, the better. Because I know quite many people want to do everything and then end up doing barely anything. I also do a lot of notes and reminders because I won't remember. I honestly won't remember half of the things if it's not written down or if it's in some way put as a, task list. I'm task-oriented person. So if I have things listed, what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, then I can function way better and then just take one thing at a time. Some people work better when they have tasks blocked in their calendar. Some when they have tasks, like in my case, on Trello or sticky notes or whatever it is, because it doesn't matter what method you use as long as it works for you. I will give you my take on the role of the CEO, because I was the CEO also before my tale as a appointed CEO, so not a founder of the company. I got a job to be a CEO, and that's a bit different, of course, than running your own studio. And one thing that is important is to understand when you are running your own studio that you don't have a boss above you, but the boss is actually all your team members are the people you actually work for. So I work for my team. I don't work for anyone else. It's in my responsibility that they have everything they need so they can do the best job they can, because I'm nothing without them when it comes to the work. How can I wouldn't be even here talking about what we do and how we do if it wasn't for them being able to do the work that they do and me enabling them with all the additional, tasks and work and making sure that everything is safe and sound, that they don't have to worry about anything else. Now, as we were growing from our company throughout the years, of course, that meant that there is more management needed to be put in place and different kind of processes. More people, of course, it is needed then to adjust your needs and ways of working and making it, again, as smooth for everyone involved. And no, we did not, for example, employ new project managers to do it, because that would just be even more stressful. At least for our team, that would even be more chaotic. Instead, we checked who within the team would actually be interested to learn more about project management and people management and so forth, and then from there enable them and teach them to get into that role. Now, of course, mistakes are being made, and I mean, we all make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. They're just different mistakes as we go. Having people actually telling what they would like to do and how they would like to do, and getting them more involved with the company structure and the way of working is always a good idea. Allow people to help you build the company forward. That worked really great for us. But then again, not everyone is meant to lead people. One should not require anything from those who are not interested to do it. As we have in our team, employees are also shareholders, or at least they become after a certain time being with us. And as a shareholders, they can decide especially what kind of shares they want to have, A shares or B shares, and based on that, there would be even automatic what kind of decision-making power you might have in the company. And there were quite many people who said, we don't want any decision-making in the companies. Like, we trust you to, you and the rest of the team to, make these decisions on our behalf, but we are happy to be that type of shareholder. And that is perfectly fine. allowing people also to say where their boundaries are and what they are comfortable with and what they are not comfortable with is very, very important. Because each of us have our strengths and weaknesses. And how it works, especially as bringing the team to work together, and why transparency is so important, is that I need to know, just like I'm sharing what are my strengths and weaknesses, that's how I want everyone to tell what are theirs, that we weave together some strengths, fill in for those weaknesses that someone else has. And then that way we as a team then, we can tackle anything that stands in front of us. And I know it's culturally weird sometimes to say that, hey, you really need to say what your weaknesses are, because we are taught through society, and again, mostly in the Western culture, it's not as common to say what your weaknesses are, or at least to think about really what your weaknesses are, because people can think that they are actually having strengths in some aspects, but in reality, especially if you see the results of their work and so, nah, not really. That might not be your strength. So being able to openly discuss these and either work on improving these skills or working together on, finding other tasks that might be way better fit for a person. Because again, nothing stops you to try and let people find their own ways and express themselves the way they wish, and even do things the way they prefer doing, as long as the result is being done according to agreed specs, and so especially for the client, well, that's all that really matters. Don't be too hard on yourself. You can achieve so many things with way less stress than you actually think there might be involved. And if only I knew that earlier, that sometimes, what people actually want from you can be, good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. And there is no perfection. That's another thing that I have learned, and I want also you to acknowledge that there is no perfection. All we can do is try our best and do our best based on different circumstances in which you might be, and specific timing, specific other moving elements that might be around. It might not be possible for you to do how you would like to do something, but hey, do the best you can, because unfortunately what happens very often, especially what we can see in games industry, is that people who are in the leadership positions, they quite often face burnouts, even force them to consider quitting the industry, which is really not necessary. Absolutely understandable why they might feel that way, but it might be good then to address the processes. The whole point of the processes is that processes are made to assist people to do their best job, right? Like that's why we are making processes that we follow, and we know that, like, trust the process. We know that this is going to take you from spot A to spot B. Now, sometimes the processes are the ones that might be the problem, because they might not be fitting the task at hand, or they might be outdated. They might be even made for a completely different team than what you would be needing. And that's why remember that processes are made to support people, not for just people to follow blindly. So if something is not working, adjust it. That's why it's there. That's what processes are for. If something is not working, means processes have to be fixed. And don't be afraid to question the processes, especially if this is something that you see, you show, you can, again, data, why this and that doesn't work. Whenever you show that or address certain challenge, also try to already think of the solution, because that will help others as well start thinking, not just about, oh, we have a problem and now everyone is this, negative, but more like, okay, guys, I noticed this, but what if? And then give your options. Like, what are your thoughts, how we can solve this and how we can take it forward? And take in consideration, of course, everyone else's opinions and thoughts and comments, because again, that is how you are going to proceed forward and see if now this will work better for you. Because sometimes it can be that some small adjustments is more than enough. It can be even the working times. Some people individually work way better in the mornings, some work better in the afternoons or even late afternoons. There are ways to adjust these things to make everyone fit within their personal rhythms, while at the same time having this kind of structure where communication is the key. Basically, as long as everyone acknowledges and is available and at specific times for everyone else to approach them. It's to be respected, and therefore you can adjust it accordingly to make it work for the whole team. I know they will do their best work and their best job in their own time and in their own ways. But again, that might not work for everyone. Some of our developers also need structure and need very clear guidelines and very clear process and clear tasks. And for them, we create very clear processes, very clear tasks. Even that we had this approach with 4 of us to now over 20 people, I still believe there is a way to do it even with more people. Because how we do things, even that we have multiple projects with quite small team, because again, this is still a small team. Each project has about 3-4 people, so it is easier to adjust and pivot also very fast if something needs changes in specific projects. And sometimes it can be that just people are, hey, I've been working on this task for I don't know how long. Would it be okay if I just switch to this project? And if everyone is okay with it, of course do it. Because sometimes we need break from the thing that we are so closely working on and observing for a long time that we can't be objective to it anymore. We don't have any more clear sight to what is wrong with something or what needs improvement. And then you come back to that task later with a clear mind and, and then it just clicks straight away. Oh, of course, this is what we needed to fix in the first place. Trust the people with that and listen to their needs, because also life hits, life has also own things that throws at us. So it can be that child gets sick, some other family member gets sick, something else happens, car breaks, something else happens that really affects your whole mindset of today's productivity. So handle these things and then come back, knowing that others also can be stepping in and helping out with this, because it can happen that, hey, I really can't handle this asset, can someone else take it? And then if someone else wants to take it and move on with it and finalize it, great. Knowing that you can ask for help and knowing that it's perfectly okay to not be able to do something, or again, life hits, now you have other priorities to handle as a parent or as an adult overall. The bigger the team, for us at least, the better that kind of adjustments are, because we then have more hands on deck to also step in when needed, how is needed, if something like that happens. And that also comes to the role of CEO. Unfortunately, our industry does have a lot of people who have leadership methods of my way or highway. I honestly don't think that is feasible for not just our industry, but generally creative industries. Because in a creative industry, in order to create something that is truly meaningful for our players, because once again, we focus on our final users, the players, and to address their needs, what we really need to understand is to listen to them. And if we can't listen, even our, own team and our own surrounding, how can we even consider listening then someone else telling us very valuable feedback of what and how things could be improved in the products that we make? CEOs, the things that you have to actually really develop is listening. That's the biggest thing. I'm very grateful to the previous CEO of the company where I worked at, who gave me this advice of how much more listening instead of talking it takes for the role of a CEO. This is the skill. This is yet another skill that you can train. It's not just the title, so please have that in mind. It's not just about the title. It's so much more underneath. Responsibility, so much responsibility. I feel so responsible for every single employee, and not just employee as a person, even for their own families, because again, we are old, we have families, we have children, we have bank loans and whatnot. For me, what is the most important is that we have safe and secured environment for working, that they can have the best possible workplace to do the job that they want to do, and also that they are secure that no matter what happens again on the market and so on, that we have our things in place, that they can actually focus on work and not worry about any layoffs or anything like that out there. I will address about financial freedom and how to make finances stable as a startup even later on in the upcoming episodes. But for now, I just want to encourage you to really look within yourself and see that, is the CEO really a role that I want to be? Would I be better in some other role? And there is nothing wrong to even have co-CEO. There is quite often that you can have two people sharing the role of legal representative of the company, because basically what the CEO does, same like it's in its name, Chief Executive Officer. You're executing what the team needs, what the company needs. When you are in a small team, you have so many other hats besides just executing what needs to be done, as you can see even the glimpses from this talk. Consider and think twice, because last thing you want, or what your team would like, is that you end up with a burnout and that you are not functional for them, and then you would feel even worse that you are letting them down, which is not the case at all. So to prevent all these snowball of different kind of bad feelings, go from within. See what works for you, especially if you want to lead the team. You can always test it again. In Finland, at least, in accelerators and incubators, not always is needed to have the formed company to be part of these programs, which means that you can test it. You can see how does it work for you to build a business, handle the team, assemble even the team if you are looking to assemble the team from the scratch. These are the really good places to start. And of course, mentorship. It's really, really good to get a mentor. If nothing else, brainstorming with someone who went through it already, and that you can ask all these questions. Forming a company is the least of your worries. Paperwork is super simple. What you really should be thinking of, how can I make this sustainable from day zero? That's what you want. You don't want something that will crash and burn in a year or even less. You want something that would really become a sustainable source of income that would allow you to do what you love most, and at the same time make your players happy, because again, it's so rewarding when you see others enjoying the games that you have created. And again, you're not alone. There are so many of us who are going through the same struggles and imposter syndrome and identity crisis and all sorts of things that come with, responsibilities that we have as the CEOs. But you're not alone. Reach out, ask questions, and know that you got this. And with that said, some of the resources that I would like to share are down in the description. These are some of the books that, of course, are very commonly recommended for the leaders to read. I found them as well really helpful. By reading them, I also saw that what I don't want to do, which is, I think, equally important. So check these books. There's also a list of mentorship programs that you might find useful. Of course, you can always reach out to the game industry professionals in your region. No fellow leader out there would be against having a, cup of coffee and chit-chat on these matters. Actually, quite contrary, they also want to most likely even maybe bounce some ideas with you, because you come with a fresh pair of eyes for their challenges at hand. As you are watching this episode, I'm actually in Lisbon at this very moment, participating at DevCom Leadership Summit. Quite a perfect match of the topic. I will be also later on sharing the learnings from this event. Meanwhile, I also want to say I will not be participating at GDC because we are launching Willow Guard on March 27th. And all hands are on deck when it comes to Willow Guard, so none of us will be participating at GDC. However, we will be present with a big booth also on the consumer side at Gamescom this year. There will be other events where you can meet us, but closer one is Over Seven Hills, one-day IT and games conference here in Turku on May 6th. Thank you for joining me once again. Keep bringing those questions. I'm more than happy to address them through the topics like this, and we see you in the next one. Cheers!